Hello and welcome to Sasha Says. I'm Sasha Gardner and I'm so excited to have you here with me as I embark on this new chapter. In this podcast, I'm speaking to incredible people who will be sharing their stories and expertise, and I hope that will help inspire you and help you on your journey. Please also don't forget to press the follow button, like, comment, and share with your friends. It's a small thing for you, but a huge thing for us, and it really does help. Hey, Lauren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to chat to you.
Lauren was born with bilateral microtia, so that's both ears missing. I met you in the hospital. I remember it was like a small box on your face.
Yeah, so it was bilateral microtia, so that was basically no outer ear forming, but I also didn't have an actual hole to let any sound in. So the only way I could process sound was through bone conduction. So that meant that there had to be a box of vibration that would be placed against a particular bone in my head for me to hear.
So if we go all the way back to when you were born, and I know that I haven't mentioned this, but you haven't ever talked about your story to anyone, have you? This is the first time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have family members and boyfriends where you have chats with, and it's always it was never something that I would just sit down and divulge everything. Like I always say, that it's never just as simple as, oh, I was born deaf. It always had to be born without ears, no outer ear, and then you have to go into the story of the operations that I had to have, and then even the operation to get the hearing aid I have now, which is
I know that you've had both of your ears reconstructed and they use the rib cartilage, don't they? And that's the lovely Dr. Gold.
yeah, that's where we met, yeah.
So just for the listeners, they take the cartilage from the ribs and then they make the shape of the ear and then they slot it because it's flat. Our ears, they're protruding, but when the surgeon does the surgery, so he sort of makes the shape of the ear and then slides it into the side of the face, and then that's the first stage of the surgery. And then on the second stage they take another lump of cartilage and then they cut behind the ear and then they put the cartilage behind it. Is that's
Exactly that, yeah.
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 And so because you have bilateral microtia, because I know that so for say someone who's got microtia on one side, that would be 2 surgeries. But in your case, because you have bilateral microtia, how many surgeries did you end up having?
I would estimate around 6.
So you had 6 surgeries, and
Yeah.
over what time period was that?
Basically the majority of my childhood. So when I started around 6 to 7.
So you had your ears reconstructed at 7, and then for 6 years
Yeah,
you
it
had
was constant
all of your
surgeries.
surgeries. So
Yeah.
you didn't have your ear, you didn't have 2 ears until what age were you?
Um, when everything was finished, when I had my operations done, 12, 13.
Do you remember the surgeries? Do you remember how you were feeling?
I remember a lot of the surgeries. A lot of the surgeries now would be kind of combined into one because to me they're just experiences. The first and second surgeries were always the ones that kind of stuck out my mind because I mean the first one, it's your first experience of what was happening. It was probably the hardest surgery to have. I was on the operation theatre 8 to 9 hours. And then as a result of that, I came out with a really bad crick in my neck where my neck was actually set like this because of the way he was doing my ear. And so that surgery, I had to undergo intense physio for my neck on top of trying to recover from the ear, having 2 gigantic drains coming out from
Yeah,
underneath the
those
ear.
drains are the worst.
Oh
I,
my God. And I couldn't believe it. And I was very, very small, so I felt like the drains were taking up half my neck kind of thing. Um and like having to do physio with your neck while those drains were sticking out, that's a feeling that has stuck with me. Probably that I'll never forget, to be honest. So the first one stuck out because of that. And then the second one stuck out because I knew what was happening and I knew what to expect when I woke up.
Yeah.
And it probably was the most frightening I would have been because I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I remember um, when they prep you for surgery, um, for the first operation, I was sat at the end of the bed, everything was prepped, I was in my gown, and Mr. Galt coming in to check. And he had Crocs on, and he had my ear drawn on his Crocs.
Oh, really? Oh, he had Crocs on.
Crocs on, and he had the ear drawn on the Croc. Um,
Why did he do that?
I don't know. And he showed me, and I was kind of thinking, is this for him to copy? Like, how is he copying my ear off his Croc, like his shoes? But he was a very funny man, so
It was
I
so
think he did
funny.
that to, yeah. But I remember he said to my parents that I had to be the one to walk down to the operation theatre. That I mean, my dad wanted to carry me down and or either give me a wheelchair, but he felt it was very important that I was willing to go and do this and regain that strength. And that is something that's been embedded in my mind ever since. Um, so just when you say like, do I remember things? Oh, definitely remember a lot of like self-teaching moments like that. But yeah, they were all very intense.
So you think that he said it should be you that walks to the theatre? Is that because then subconsciously it's you saying it's your choice to do this?
Yeah, because I was so young, and like I went into this trusting everyone around me that this was the best choice for me. It was my choice. I knew why I was doing it and I wanted ears, but I had to come to the end and say, okay, I'm getting onto the operation bed and I'm doing this, and not for my parents to bring me there. It was my journey, and he was quite adamant about that, and it it was very hard, but I think it made me very confident as well to do that. Um, Especially like I was so young, around 7. So yeah.
And here's the other thing as well, Lauren. Most children who have microtia, they usually get, if they decide to do that, they have corrective surgery, and usually it's when they're aged under 7. And in some cases, they decide not to, or they decide maybe they will do it later on when they're a bit older. But this isn't just a case of, oh, I would like to have 2 ears, and then um, you just, you have a surgery. This is a case of deciding that you want to have 2 ears, but then you have now got to endure 6 years of surgery. So, was there any moments throughout that time that you felt that you'd made the wrong decision?
Never the wrong decision, but there was always cases where one thing after another would happen and I'd be lying on the bed and I was very, very sick with the morphine and the medication they were giving me, and that would set me back on my recovery, and then I would have to stay in longer. And there would be those moments where I just thought, could God or whoever was up there just not let me have a simple run of life or at this, and just let me just get on with making these years and just get out of the place. There was always those kind of downfall moments. I never regretted doing it. I never once thought, oh, I probably shouldn't have even started. But there were moments where I was just fed up and um kind of resentful in a way that I had to go through it. And I remember thinking that my case with bilateral microtia and the kind of severity of it, I thought, well, why couldn't I have just had one side with an ear and then at least I could show that side off? Why did I have to get both ears deformed? And so there were definitely moments like that, and I still have those moments, but never regret or never wishing that I even started the whole process.
And how did it work from when you were born up until you had both of your ears rebuilt in the sense of hearing? So I know that you have it's called a Baha, by the way, but that's a bone anchored hearing aid, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that usually goes behind the ear. And is that, can you just explain, because I'm not really familiar with this, so that people can understand. So what you have and when did you have it and what was that process?
So the Baha, so it's bone anchored hearing aid. So that was the best for me because all my life that was how I was conducting sound and hearing was through bone. So it's essentially it's called an abutment, but you get a screw drilled into a bone at the back of your ear,
Yeah.
like so.
Your ears look fantastic, by the way, I have to say.
Well, this side would be a little bit, it was harder to do, whereas this side, I like this side better.
Yeah, they're lovely. What a lovely pair of ears, Lauren.
Thanks, I worked for them. Um,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, so this is the actual hearing aid.
Okay.
And this clips onto the screw that is drilled into your head,
Okay.
and that's how the vibration works. So, um, that took two operations to do.
And you have
Usually,
them on both sides.
no, I only have it on one, so my right.
So when did you first have your bone anchored hearing aid? At what age were you?
Back in around 2010, so around 14.
So up until you had your bone anchored hearing aid at 14, could you not hear anything? How was your hearing?
It was the same device where it was that box, and then a wire came out of this
Yeah.
box, yeah, and it had like a microphone that was shaped like this,
Yeah.
and I would wear like headbands.
Oh, okay. So it was like a headband with the, I've seen that actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the microphone, so I'm wearing the headband, the microphone would kind of stick out here, and then I'd have a box around there.
What was it like for you at school? Because if you had all those surgeries over the course of 6 years, did that interfere with your school life?
Yeah, it definitely did. So when I was doing the operations, it was all when I was in primary school, and that was a major deciding factor for my parents was to make sure I got these operations done before I went into secondary school,
Yeah.
post primary. So it was all during primary school, and I was in a very small country school which helped enormously in terms of the support I was given, the friends I had, the teachers and how they interacted with me. So that was a huge, huge thing, and probably something that my parents really did do right was to make sure I had kind of a small network of that support. My friends, they all knew, but I think when you're young, you don't know the kind of severity of certain things. Like, I'm sure they didn't realize maybe that I didn't have ears, or they just thought that I was either hard of hearing or deaf. So, but they knew that I had to go and have these really intensive operations. And I mean, we had fundraisers to help fund the money for these operations, which the school or my friends from school came to. So they definitely knew, and I kind of had that support system. And I also had a visiting teacher from the deaf come to the school and make sure that I was getting the support I needed. So in terms of that, like, my school life was absolutely fine. There was a period where I had to be homeschooled for a couple of months leading up to one of my operations, and that was because Mr. Galt wanted to make sure I was at my best health. I had to gain a little bit more weight because I was absolutely tiny, and just to kind of make sure that I wasn't being too rough on the playground because any knocks on my skull, there couldn't be any sensitivity there when going into these kind of operations. So that period was actually quite hard, those couple of months.
Did you ever wear your hair up or did you always wear your hair down?
Never ever up. I still don't
She
do
said it with
never.
conviction.
Yeah, no, but this is something like this is the challenge for me as well, is that I'd love my hair up. I'd love to just come into work and just wear a ponytail, and it's such a kind of simple thing, but it's a huge thing for me. But I mean, in school, like, I would adapt and I might wear like a loose plait where the hair kind of still hangs low around my ears, or I would never ever have my ears on show at all. No.
And did you experience any bullying at school or
No, absolutely not. No. I did get questions, like people would get glimpses of my ears or my hearing aid, and that's when I would tell them. But never, no, I was very fortunate that I didn't have any of those kind of experiences, no.
That's really good because I
Yeah,
do know some people who, experience bullying. So I'm really happy to hear that you didn't.
yeah,
Um, so even now you've got both of your ears rebuilt, are you still conscious? So you always still wear your hair down or?
yeah, yeah, no, but this is the thing. So I have people that would say to me, are you not proud of your ears? Or you went through all of that and you're not even going to wear your hair up to show your ears. But that's, I never went through the operations and that struggle just to wear my hair up. I I went through that just to get a sense of having my own ears and normality for me. And it's one of the greatest things as well before going into the operation was my parents and Dr. Gall always told me, you're never going to get a full looking realistic ear because of how little we have to work with and kind of the magnitude of my particular surgery. So I always knew that in the background of my mind. Um and you see there's a lot of scarring behind my ears, and there's some scars of the tubes, the drainage tubes, and there's a lot of that, but that's not me being ashamed. It's just me not wanting to walk down the street and have everyone look at me and stare at me, and because I not everyone has a right to look, but at the same time I'm kind of thinking just leave me be, don't be looking at me. Yeah.
Do you find that you do experience that? So for example, if you're walking down the street, do you find people do stare a lot or?
Yeah. If I have my hair in a certain way, or if the wind is blowing and you can see the bottom and a bit of my hearing aid, 100%. But I'm trying to get more confident with it because I don't want to leave this world without thinking I never had my hair up.
The thing is, you mentioned the word normal, and from my experiences, I think that society tells you, okay, this is normal. But what is normal?
Yeah,
Because you have your normal and I have my normal, but we have social pressures and society tries to dictate what is normal and then, makes us feel that we aren't. But actually, we are. There's lots of reasons, obviously, and they're very personal, and it's really up to the individual to make that choice for themselves. But exactly like what you just said, Lauren, and what Dr. Galt said to you, is that when you have your ears reconstructed, you then have two ears, but then you have another issue where you feel conscious because they don't look like two ears. So
yeah,
it's always there. So, and this is what I try to always say to people, that it's actually fine to, I would never obviously promote surgery. It's actually fine to have surgery or to not have surgery, but it's more about understanding that if you do decide to have corrective surgeries, to have your ear reconstructed, that you will then, it's not that then you still will feel slightly conscious. And it's not just you, it's a lot of people that I've spoken to that do have microtia have said exactly the same thing.
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
not on your own.
No, I know. But this is the thing, it's like if you look around nowadays, nearly everyone looks the same with all the surgeries that they're getting, and like I can easily fall into that trap where I think I do have days where I just wish that I would just have two ears and I'd have my hair up and all that kind of thing. And that is totally normal. But yeah, it is a challenge.
I'm all about, making the best of what you have, and it's good to take care of yourself in terms of your image, but I do think that there is such a pressure on how we look, and
Yeah,
we always seem to forget that it really does start with us and what's inside and how we are as people. But it's not about what we look like, and there's this pressure, especially with social media, that we need to look like this to be beautiful. No, we don't, because I believe that everyone is beautiful in their own way,
yeah,
regardless of
exactly.
what is going on otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's that quote, so what is it? When you leave this world, no one remembers really what you look like, but how you made them feel.
There you go.
So, yeah, just have to be a good person.
Do
Yeah.
you feel that you experience feeling isolated because of the lack of hearing?
Yeah, the feeling of isolation comes in many different kind of shape and forms for me. Obviously, I never experienced bullying and that kind of thing with friendships or anything like that in terms of that making me feel isolated. It was more about things that I couldn't do that other people could. And that would really make me come back to I have this hearing loss and I have this struggle, and sometimes I will forget about it because I'm treated like everyone else, I'm working like everyone else. But then you have moments where I go into the staff room, and if there's a big group around a table, I get quite anxious about where I'm going to sit, or who will I sit next to, because on my left side I am like I can't hear. If we're in a group situation and you start talking to me here and I'm looking over there, I mean, God bless the person that's beside me here. They probably think I'm a horrible person and not answering them, but it's because I can't hear them.
Yeah, you get
So I'm
misunderstood.
always like on the alert of making sure, like in social situations, that I'm placing myself somewhere. And then sometimes if I can't do that, I'll just leave the staff room and I'll do a bit of work. And then I'm sitting there doing work, and I do feel that isolation where I just wish I could just go in and sit down. I definitely have those moments, but then I'm also like, I'm clever enough as well to not be the center of attention, but make sure that I start a conversation that I know what it's about. So I'm not coming in on a conversation and I have to figure out who is saying what is saying there and here. But at least I know I started it, and then I can at least then develop on it because I know what's being said. So it's those kind of
Yeah,
tactics.
it's like you've picked up these little strategies along the way. Do you lip read?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
did you know that like when we during the pandemic when we were wearing the masks, that must have impacted you a lot.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I'm gonna go on a rant. But this is what blows my mind as well. That okay, fair enough, we had to wear face masks, but then there were some industries that would wear the clear mask. I would appreciate that. In my mind, I would never actually realize that I needed that unless, or in my mind, I would never realize that I do lip read as much as I did until it was taken away from
Same.
me.
Yeah.
So I have to go for these regular checkups with the surgeon. And during COVID, my boyfriend and I went up, and in the audiologist section where you go for your hearing, and 90% of the people are there because they have no hearing or hard of hearing. Everyone was wearing full masks.
Oh wow.
The receptionist wasn't using the microphone to speak. She was calling names behind a glass window that no one could hear. And I just thought those kind of things now, that does irritate me. Those kind of things.
Also as well, because with the mask, because they're hooking over your ear, did that not irritate or hurt your ear?
I actually couldn't do that because it's like it's very up here, it's quite tight to my scalp.
Yeah.
So I couldn't actually hook it. So what I had to do was I had to get like a paper clip and
Oh, okay.
tie the strings behind.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge as well. And then,
Quite creative.
well, like I mean, to do these things, you have to. Um. So, but yeah, that was just a little rant there. So
School, did you have a lot of friends or what was that like?
I had a good bunch of friends in primary school and post-primary school. And in primary school, it was very small anyway, so we were all like one big bunch, like a happy family. But that's not me saying because I miss popular or anything like that. But that was also because when I was growing up, my family never treated as if I was the special one in the
Yeah.
family or if I was the deaf one. I was always treated as if I was hearing. I mean, it's my parents would always tell me that when they had me and they took me to a doctor to investigate was there anything else possibly that didn't form along with the ears. And when they found out it was just that one, it was just a kind of a bizarre thing that happened that both ears didn't form. He said the best thing you can do basically for this child is not treat her as if she was deaf. So I think growing up, I had the confidence. I had, in my head, I was like, well, I'm like everyone else. So there was never that kind of reservation about me. So I wasn't going into friendship situations where I thought, oh, I'm not in the same league or I'm not like them. I just got on with it. So
Yeah.
I didn't suffer in terms of that about making friends or anything like that.
You teach geography and English,
Yeah.
and that's not in a deaf school, is it?
No, it's in a mainstream normal school.
I love that we keep saying normal. And the reason I'm saying that is because you are
Yeah.
literally a normal girl living a normal life. You see yourself, you actually see yourself as like everyone else. And that's because from a young age you were told, was it Dr. Galt that gave your parents that advice about
Um,
to treat you just like a fully hearing child?
no, it was a doctor or their consultant who was with me when I was a baby and trying to investigate if I had any syndromes. Just
Yeah.
because usually a lot of time when the two ears don't form, there's other organs that don't form along with it. So he just had to make sure there was nothing else. But luckily it was just the two ears. So he was the one that suggested maybe speech and therapy, loud noises when I was a baby, like put me beside a Hoover. Um, yeah, like my mum says she'd just put on a Hoover and just sit me beside a Hoover
That's hilarious.
and like and you see they never even did sign language with me because they wanted to promote the lip reading and to kind of eye contact always. So
Do
yeah.
you do you sign?
So only it was around 2 years ago I did two courses of Irish Sign Language.
It's quite
Um
hard, isn't it?
yeah, it's so hard, but I only did that because I worked in a deaf school up in Dublin for a little bit. So I wanted that behind me, but it's so hard. Like I'd probably need to go back and practice again.
So going back to what we were talking about, so you are a normal, you're a normal person who went to a normal school, who has a normal life, and you teach in a normal school.
Yeah.
So here's what I think as well is that because it's almost invisible, you can't see it. It's invisible disability, and so what would come with that is that people will treat you like you're normal because people forget.
Just when you said people forget, because obviously I'm living up in Dublin now, sometimes when I go back home, I remember, so me and my boyfriend were in my dad's house and I was having a shower. And so obviously no hearing aid, nothing, can't hear anything. And my dad just starts knocking on the door and starts talking to me while I'm in the shower. And
Okay,
my boyfriend's like, she can't hear you. So then he speaks louder, but he forgot that it's because I can't hear, not just because I'm in the shower. But
exactly.
we always had a
What do
system
you want
that
for dinner?
I know, like my boyfriend was saying, he was having a full on conversation with you, and I'm thinking my own father like forgets,
Yeah,
you
and so
know. Now, the only person I know who will never ever have a moment of forgetting is my mum because you know how she's been during the operations and fighting all along. But I just thought that it's funny that if my dad can have those moments, then other people can, you know?
do you find any parts of your job? I know you mentioned the meetings. Any do you find any of that challenging, or have you managed to sort of work around it?
I remember training and doing my placements for teaching. I remember coming to the realization of I just did not even think about this before going into the profession, but when you're teaching and a student says miss or starts talking, because I only have one side of hearing, I have no sense of direction of where the sound is coming from.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the same with you, but that's a huge thing that does affect me. And
Oh yeah. Like literally, like where
I
did that
know.
come from?
And 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 I always say to my students, like, you have to put up your hand, or you have to put up your hand. But that's the general practice anyway. So it's not like they're thinking, why do we have to put up our hand? But it's because I genuinely don't know who asked me that question.
No one, I don't think, understands what it's like to have microtia unless they have it themselves,
Yeah,
because there's lots of things that you might struggle with that you don't even know it's a struggle because it's all you know.
yeah,
So
exactly.
talk to me about dating life, because you are in a relationship where you're quite open about your ears, and what was that like for you?
So yeah, so I'm with my boyfriend now nearly 5 years. It's going well.
Good. And do I need to buy a hat anytime soon?
Oh, stop, no. But yeah, we met in college and we were kind of like in the same like friend group.
Yeah.
And I've had like a couple of boyfriends before him where I've told them. And obviously now it's broken up, that in the back of my head, I'm always kind of like, I wish I didn't tell them because they're out in the world now knowing something that's quite sacred to me.
Mhm.
And again, that just reinforces why I really make sure who I tell is important. So I remember when telling him, I was probably the most nervous out of all of them because I kind of thought, well, this could go one or two ways. It could be, well, we're going to break up and he'll know that secret, or he'll just love me for who I am and, it'll progress on from that. But it's always a very awkward conversation. It's always very hard because you don't know how to bring it up really when it's your partner, if that makes sense. It's different when it's a friend because this is something I always ask my parents, but what if the person I'm with thinks that what I have is biological and then they don't want to settle with me because of this? And a lot of, there are people that would be freaked out by that and quite reserved and might not want to settle because of that fear. And
But it's not
so,
it's not biological.
no,
Um,
it's not.
no.
No.
Okay.
It's not, but that's why I always say it, and then I go, but don't worry, it's not biological, it's not
Oh,
genetic. But and it's horrible to think like that, but you and not that like there's anything wrong with you, but you do think about if it is your partner, what are they going to think?
of course.
Um, but then so when I told Donica, his name is his he was probably the best out of the lot of them to handle it. And he kind of just looked at me, he was kind of like, okay, so, as if like, what was the whole problem? Like, why were you so anxious? And, but it's funny, but he actually had hearing problems when he was born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he had to go for an operation last year where he had like a cholesteatoma in his ear, which was like a growth, and basically if it got worse, he would go deaf. And I
Oh,
remember my granddad going, God, Aaron, could you not have chosen someone with a hearing? And I was like, I know, but sometimes you think as well, like there's this force that brings people together for a reason. And like that's what I was saying with you, like how weird that me and you have connected all of a sudden after all these years. So I don't know, but in terms of like the whole dating thing, it was never a struggle. I mean, you get those moments where if you're having a kiss and they might put their hand around your neck. I just go into this Kung Fu Panda move where like I get his hand and
yeah.
I move it. But apart from that, it's never been a problem. But it has been a challenge, obviously, telling them. And the huge thing for me was just making sure that they didn't think it was a genetic thing or a
Yeah.
biological thing. Yeah.
If you don't tell people, then they don't know,
Yeah.
and it's almost then you do suffer in silence. So as much as it's, as much as it's sometimes difficult to, or you might feel embarrassed or whatever it is, it's better to be upfront, because then you could just save yourself a lot of stress. Even when it comes to, say, in the workplace as well, it's about really telling your line manager or your work colleagues, because otherwise they don't know. And like you said, you can really be misunderstood as well. Like, do you remember earlier you said that, whoever's sitting, say, on your deaf side, they would just think, oh, she's a bit rude, when
Yeah.
actually you're not, you just can't hear them.
Yeah, exactly. That is where telling people is really important, because there's been moments where sometimes I might not try to tell the hairdresser and they might clip my baha and it'll go flying. And then you have to get that repaired and all that kind of thing. So obviously being open and honest is the best policy, I suppose.
If you had any advice to a mother who's just she's got a baby with microtia, or anyone who's a bit younger, what advice would you give based on all of your experiences and where you are now? Like, what would your advice be?
I think obviously it's going to be a huge, huge shock. And I can't imagine how my parents felt when they were presented with this kind of thing. But a huge thing that was a benefit to them was that they just researched and researched and researched everything, and to not almost take one surgeon's word as gospel, because like my parents went to many places, and that was probably the best thing for them, because then they could kind of build up their own opinion. And before they met Mr. Galt for my ears, they went to see a lot of different surgeons, and it's really kind of, you just have to trust the process and understand that it is a journey. It's not going to be something that's going to be fixed overnight. And we were fortunate enough as well that my mom was able to work part-time and stay at home to give me that support and to dedicate that time to do research on what I had and what I needed. But the major thing that I just very thankful for them, and I've already said it, is that they just didn't treat me any differently. Um, and that kind of gave me the resilience and the confidence to go out in the world and think, no, I'm not different. I just have this kind of sub part to me that a lot of people don't have. I can't imagine what it would be like for a parent to go through and the worry they must feel. But they just trust the process, I suppose.
And if you could turn back time, would you do it again? Would you change anything?
Yeah, I would do it again. I mean, these ears don't look like proper ears. I'll never get to a point, I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I'm going to be wearing my hair up in work and feel very comfortable walking down the street. But it's also experiences that have given me huge growth and resilience, where a lot of my friends suffer a lot from anxiety or their own kind of self-conscious issues and their own worries. And I'm kind of, and my boyfriend will say this, is that I'm kind of like just going with the flow now. And he said, but that's because you've done all your hard work back when you were young. And now you're just kind of almost living your life now, where you're just breezing through, because all the hard stuff, well, hopefully it stays that way. All the hard stuff for me, emotionally and physically, was when I was younger and had to go through that. And I had to learn a lot of self discovery stuff when I was younger. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have my moments where I just want to cry and think, why me? Because I won't be human if that was the case. But
Yeah.
also, I do think that my experiences made me a lot more resilient compared to what my friends are going through now. And I almost wish that they experienced something or saw what I went through, so they realized that it's okay what they're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying it right, but no, I'd never go back and do something different or anything like that. Obviously, it was a pretty traumatic time. It was quite traumatic. But I'm on the other side now and just have to live my life.
Honestly, I think you're such an incredible woman. And even when I'm listening to you talk. I think you've been through so much and you've turned out so well. And like you said, you've built up this resilience, and that you are human and you do get affected by things like we all do. But this is a positive, isn't it? Because you take life in its stride, you do it day by day, you have a positive attitude, and you're grateful for what you have. And your mum and your dad, I'm sure, are incredibly proud of you, because with everything that you've been through, to sit there and to have achieved everything that you have achieved and just be the lovely Lauren that you are is a true inspiration. It should be really celebrated, because you have been through an awful lot, and to sit there and just, tell your story and be vulnerable is a big thing, Lauren. And I really hope that by you sharing your story on this platform, that people will take a lot of valuable things away from this.
Well, thank you. You're the same though. You were my role model when I was in hospital.
It's almost time to wrap this up, unless there's anything you would like to say to the listeners.
For anyone who's thinking of going through maybe ear reconstruction or even getting a BAHA, I think it's 100% worth it. For your own sake, for your hearing and your confidence. And obviously the operations are quite daunting. And if you're willing to fight for what you think you deserve, then it's absolutely worth it. And I'm here if you need any advice. I'm sure you can get in contact with me somehow.
So actually, on that note, Lauren, what is the best way to reach out to you? And then I can link everything below.
Well, I was thinking of making a separate Instagram account where I upload my non-hearing things. If we can somehow include it maybe at the end or something.
We've obviously known each other for quite a long time now, and we met through Microtia, and here we are talking about Microtia. And I think so glad that I'm so grateful, that you are part of this. It's incredible. So well done to you, and thank you so much for coming on.